Hey everyone, welcome back. I wanted to do this video based on an email that I'd received from somebody, and they're from a different martial art, but they were talking about Bujinkan. One of the things that they said they like watching about what we do is the flow, that there's an emphasis on this flow. Sometimes people call it Nagare uh, or Ru, etc. But flow really is just continuity. That's all it is. It's just continuity. So, and then there's a rhythm and timing associated with that. So, those three aspects of it, and that is something that is important. It's important in the training, of course, but that's a development stage. So, it's important to understand. People talk about flow. Oh, you have to have flow. You have to have flow. But at the same time, you have to have structure. You have to have all your parts in the right place at the right time. And this is where mindful practice comes in. This is where proper instruction and proper training really plays a key role in that. That for a long time, and this is just my opinion, please, if I offend you or anybody, I'm sorry, but I've been in this art for a very, very long time, and I've seen all kinds of different ways that people train. I myself have gone through different phases and trained different ways. Um, and so I know what I'm talking about here. But people that they put this emphasis on flow and they do this almost like dance like kind of movement and everything, but it lacks the teeth of a good structure, or it'll lack the effectiveness that you can only get from a proper structure. That not all the parts are lined up at the right time in the right way. And and this becomes a real dangerous aspect of training. At the same time, people that put so much emphasis on that structure and alignment and everything that they don't develop enough, they don't develop the continuity, the flow. They become like robots, and what happens is you get this start stop type of training. They go from A to B and they stop, and then they go from B to C and then they stop, and that creates a very bad habit too. So but so that's something that I think there's two ends of that spectrum, that the answer lies in the middle, but it's a development process. You first have to learn the structure before you can develop the flow. Developing the flow first is okay for understanding how to relax and have some movement, but the emphasis should be in the correct order. And again, this is my opinion, but this is why proper Kihon training, proper training of the basics is so important. This is why proper training in the kata or waza is so important, because that's your structure. I did a video on masculine and feminine, masculinity, femininity, and I think if you go back and take a look at that, and I think you're going to find that to be really helpful, because I go into the importance of structure and consistency and stability, becoming that's your first focus. And then once you establish that, then the adaptiveness, responsiveness, reactiveness, this flowiness, that just comes in naturally. Um, and so I think if you go back and watch that video, you're going to find it helpful. Also, there's one on Kihon. What are the Kihon? I recommend going back and watching that as well as maybe, definitely the other videos you'll see on there too. It all relates to really what I'm trying to say here. Um, but let's take a look at what is continuity of motion. What does that mean? Continuity means it continues. It's continuous. It doesn't stop. And in training, this can be first learned through, once you understand the proper dynamics of something. You put your foot there, the body moves there, the arm lifts, once you understand those structural dynamics and the movement that involves with that, the down angle distance, that down depth distance, that type sort of thing. Once you understand how all of that works, continuity is when you start taking away the gap, the space of time that between the start and the stop and restart. You start minimizing that gap. And there are ways to do this. And I use this example in my class when I talk about and demonstrate about the importance of your knees, that the knees are really vital in this. So let's take, for instance, you step back into your kamae, into receiving. and you're allowing your weight to shift back. You're sinking down, shifting your weight back. You're turning that rear foot knee out like that, and you're putting weight on that rear leg. Well, now you need to come forward. So, I could use Chino kata or Ichimonji no kata or whatever. There are examples where we do this, and what you see a lot of times is this like, and then they go forward. And what happens with that, when you look at the dynamics of motion and how energy works, is that when you're coming back and down, when you're shifting and sinking back and down, all this weight is coming out through your foot into the ground, and the start stop type of motion seeks to stop that. So it pushes back against the ground. It's basically like choking off, like a water hose. You're choking off that flow. And then you're then having to reverse that angle and do that again. Well, when you do that, what that means is that you're puffing up the muscles in the leg, and then you're going to fire those muscles to shove off the ground to then come forward. Now, in our martial art, um, back in the old days when our senior Japanese were young students, that Hatsumi Soke would take them and they would train outdoors a lot. And there's actually a story from Ishizuka Soke, now the new Soke of Gyoku, but Ishizuka, where he talks about how they used to train on frozen lake, or they would train in these weird type of environments and stuff. They would train with wooden sandals, and uh, all these different kinds of things where footwork was really important. Your stability on the ground was really important. And if you did that, if you just went back and then tried to push off on the ground, that foot's going to go boom. It's going to slip out. And if you want to try this, try practicing on a hardwood floor or a laminate floor with a pair of socks on and see how that works. And when you shift back into that good deep kamae and you receive it, and then you go to push off with that foot, see if you're able to do that. That foot slides out. So there's a method of being able to create continuity that doesn't allow that to happen. That's the kihon no kihon. That's kind of the basics of the basics of knowing how to take your energy that's coming down and how to then roll it into a forward motion. So it has to do with the use of the knees, that the knees don't harden up. You don't come back and then harden the knees up and then have to push off. The knees actually guide by, as you come down, the knees continue to bend, and it controls that descent. My hand up higher. It controls that descent to then allow you to glide forward by using the forward knee to then soften and yield. The forward knee allows for gravity to and momentum to pull you forward. So you're not coming down, putting on the brakes, and then bursting off to go forward. It's a very guided approach of controlling that descent and then turning that energy and having it come forward naturally instead of a projection. It's a pulling motion. It becomes like again, there's like this positive, negative attraction, repulsion. So you're not repulsing the ground. You're simply yielding to gravity and then controlling which direction you want that gravity to take you. So I don't want to go too much farther into that because I'm not a video teacher. So, but I want to at least maybe spur your mind, maybe give you an aha moment. You can take a look at that in your own training as well. Without the help of somebody that really knows what they're doing, this is going to be really hard to truly understand on a physical level. Your knee alignment has to be a certain way to avoid micro tears in your knees and things like that. So it's really important that you get a good coach or a good teacher that's going to help you to practice this. But I think that at least gives you some idea of how continuity is developed. It's the same when you do a strike. Let's say you come forward, you do your tsuki, right? Your tsuki. You come forward and you practice this ski and your arm extends out, everything extends out. And then there's that period there where you kind of just lock up the body. The body just goes, and it's like locked out. Well, then you have to unlock the body to move. Continuity of motion is to where it's the idea that, yeah, it's okay to lock your structure in place for that impact because it's absorbing that impact. But then it lets it go so that it can continue while the motion is still going. So it's not a here and then freezes. It's a hit and continues, or a hit and retracts. There's a continuity that's there that has that same kind of rolling feeling, but all the parts snap into place at the right moment of impact. And you see this with the way that our shuto is done, our shuto, that it's this half open hand, right? So the way you do the shuto is to have the hand closed until the moment of impact, then it comes open. And that's the idea, that things lock into place at the moment of impact and then soften again, because it keeps that continuity, allows for that energy to still continue. Um, so again, this whole idea of flow is really important, but flow is how you take a structure and move it in a continuous way. It's not where you are a jellyfish and you lack that structure. I think I think people need to really pay attention to this a little more. I think this is something that it was fun, like back in the day when we were all just kind of, hey, whatever, and do whatever. But I think we need to come back to really looking at our alignment and our structure and how we can take the lessons learned from this free movement and this play, but add some teeth to it. Hammer that, use the tannering process to build that structure, to make it so that it's precise and it's and it's aligned properly and it's balanced, but at the same time it has movement that's continuous, that flows. The other aspect about continuity is timing. Timing is very, very important on this. Timing is not waiting and then going, timing is about matching motion with motion. So the faster the opponent moves, it's not going to necessarily make you move faster, but you look for the rhythm of movement. You look for the rhythm of things and you work in the timing of that rhythm, because once you capture the timing or the pacing of that rhythm, you can manipulate that. So I'll just leave that for you. I'm not going to go too far into it, but timing really matters. And this whole idea of flow is really important. In beginning level of training, it's important that both the uke and the tori move at the same speed. What I see a lot, and I'm guilty of this myself, but what I see a lot is that it's easy to have this like multi-gear function. It's like having a crazy transmission that throws you into high gear, low gear, and high gear. So you're doing this technique and you're flowing, then suddenly the strike comes in, and then you wham, you put the strike out, and then you're back to flowing again. And you have to understand that in order to truly capture the flow of something and the timing of something, is that you have to be consistent in your time. You have to be consistent in the flow of things, like a heartbeat motion that just keeps that same pace. Try to find a pace that you and your partner are comfortable working at, and then mindfully practice staying at that pace in a preset motion or preset action, which is what a kata is, preset action. So you know what they're going to do, they know what you're going to do, and now work on those points, those connecting points of, you move, the arm comes up here, then you move, and this other arm comes up here, and then you move. This these little connecting points that connect the motions of the sequence of events match time with that, with their movement. So when they extend that punch, by the time that punch fully extends, you should be fully extended. Then they go to execute a second punch. That's when you're beginning your movement. And then, so you're matching move for move in a one-to-one type of motion. Or in the case of, if you're learning a basic kata that maybe has 3 moves to their 1 move, which is, again, that's baby step version, that their 1 move, if all 3 of those parts fit in that 1 move, that you're pacing it so that the 3 are measured out, or all 3 of those moves happen at least in the sequence they're supposed to happen. So if you're moving back and you're supposed to knock this arm out, which reveals the opening for you to then come in and deliver your attack, that you're moving out, opening that arm, and delivering the attack, those 3 parts, in the timing of that window. So again, that's where you have to practice slowly and mindfully and with control. But be mindful of this crazy changes in speed and pacing, and focus on that proper continuity of motion. What's interesting is when you look at this idea of moving back and moving forward, in continuity, you can start playing with the timing of how you receive an attack. So again, I'm very careful not to go too far into this, but I'm just giving you some ideas here to maybe start to think about. Is that when I raise my arm and I receive that attack, if I start to then shift forward as I've cleared that punch, and I'm still receiving that punch and I shift forward, there's something about that, the timing of when to start that movement forward in a continuity of motion that creates a whole new dynamic to your training and opens up a whole new window to the level of technique that you're going to do. Same technique, it just becomes a little bit more um, efficient, a little bit more advanced, and it gets rid of the robotics. So there's one example for you. You can try. I think you might know what technique I'm referring to, although it can be done in all of them or most of them. Um, you can also be done with weapons too. So I hope you find this helpful and useful. I hope that this maybe opens your mind a little bit. Maybe you already know this stuff. That's okay too. Maybe you have a different viewpoint on it, and that's okay too. I'm not trying to step on any toes or tell you that your way is wrong. This is just the way that we train in my school based on my understanding and how I was taught. So it's funny that I always have to say that, but I get comments from people. Anyway, but again, I appreciate all the support. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like the videos you find useful and share them. Let's get positive information. There's too much drama and back and forth, whatever stuff going on. Let's share some positivity and help each other as a community. That's what the Bujinkan is. It's a community. So let's act like a community and support each other's growth. Um, and that's my purpose of these videos. So again, I appreciate all the support and I love the dialogue, the messages that I'm getting, whether it's posted on the video or even private messages or emails. That's cool too. But thank you so much. And as I always say, stay happy, stay healthy, and no matter what, keep training.